These are the craziest, darkest moments from the world of Family Guy. 12. Switching it around for an unpleasant discovery.
For the next week, you'll be the parents and we'll be the kids.
Crisscross.
Yes, that is a crisscross.
Yes.
One of the most common tropes of Family Guy is when the show takes well-worn, high-concept tropes and explores it in its own dark, comedic way.
Let us forever remember this beautiful young woman, yet as unspoiled as when she was born.
Only to then make it so humorous that you wonder whether anything in life is worth getting serious over.
Yeah, he was Korean.
Okay, Korean. Is this the man who assaulted you?
Peter, they're never gonna take you back. You got fired for racist drawings.
I guess.
With this particular episode, they take on the idea of kids and parents switching places, which was always going to start debates. Chris works at a brewery, and Meg becomes a homemaker. Peter and Lois go to high school in Season 9, Episode 13, Trading Places.
Show me your school spirit!
To determine whether it's easier to be an adult or a child. As one would expect from a show like Family Guy, Chris ends up being so good at Peter's job that he's hired permanently, even though his behavior throughout the show has shown him to be mostly incompetent.
Hey, Meg, check it out. I'm gonna jump that fire hydrant.
However, the stress of being the breadwinner of the house at such a young age gets to Chris, and he starts drinking heavily, having heart palpitations, and verbally abusing his family at every opportunity. Yay, it's relatable in a way, but to see a kid do it is obviously not what some families would like.
That pain in my stomach is back. You don't know what I go through every day.
It's a not-so-fun shoe on the other foot scenario that may cut a little too close to home in some cases. 11th, throwing hands with death itself.
Who are you?
I'm Callista Flockhart. Who the hell do you think I am? I'm death. Then what do you call this?
Peter, is that your handwriting?
I guess nothing is out of bounds for this show, as it decided to mock death itself in this episode. The ironically late comedian Norm Macdonald made one of the best guest starring roles in Family Guy, voicing the surprisingly sarcastic Death.
Let's go, Peter.
Wait! You can't go. The living room and live for another 40 or 50 years.
40. Let's go.
In the Season 2 episode, Death is a Bee, Peter marks himself as diseased to evade a pricey hospital bill. However, this prompts a visit from Death himself, who later twists an ankle in pursuit of Peter.
Look, I caught Flo, Joe. You don't think I can catch you? Ah! I'm totally fine. Damn Irish.
Peter must then temporarily assume Death's duties while he is recovering. Yes, this is an actual episode that happened, and it was all the way back in 2000, so you can imagine what the audience reactions must have been like. While it's overall fairly lighthearted, especially as per Family Guy standards, it deals with an incredibly heavy subject, particularly during the final sequence in which Peter must decide who to kill during a potentially fatal plane crash. This was one of the earlier episodes before Family Guy was canceled initially. While it had not fully settled into its dark comedy, it was episodes like this which dealt with death in a flippant way that made it clear Family Guy was edgier than the average network adult animated shows. It's actually quite surprising that the show managed to escape cancellation after having aired an episode like this one back in the day. The political climate 24 years ago was definitely not the same as it is today, but you could still imagine some kind of outrage over the subject matter here. 10, an episode that even Fox refused to air.
We were wondering if you would be our surrogate.
Oh my God.
I'd like you to watch this video presentation.
Yeah, I got a few minutes. My wife's getting an abortion.
Family Guy has always been willing to touch on controversial subject matter, but it is often criticized for not dealing with these storylines in a worthwhile way, although that is most definitely up to the audience to decide. The show has gained a lot of fame when it comes to short clips on YouTube and Instagram, which is definitely the ideal way for it to go viral. However, when it comes to television, there have been times where the subject matter has been so extreme that the broadcasters themselves refuse to air it. In the episode Partial Terms of Endearment, Lois is asked by her friends to become a surrogate mother for them. She agrees and gets pregnant, but then the friends who were going to raise the baby end up losing their lives, so Lois has to decide whether to raise it herself or get rid of it. It's a scathingly sardonic episode with a premise that doesn't feel fit for a comedy series, especially because the humor wasn't really hitting as hard as it should have. While it is available on home media, Season 8's Partial Terms of Endearment is the only banned Family Guy episode and has never been allowed to air in the United States. That's right, Fox refused to broadcast the episode and even requested that Adult Swim not air it either. Ironically, this likely drew more attention to the episode than if Fox had just aired it. Well, it looks like they were right about any publicity being good publicity. 9. Not the kind of revelations you'd enjoy.
Somehow we've got to get Quagmire his job back.
Fellas, I think I have an idea. Quagmire will pose as an airline passenger on the 6 o'clock flight to New York. Here we drug the pilots, at which point Quagmire is forced to step in and land the plane safely, making him a hero.
Everybody loves a little spoof, that is, of course, until Family Guy decides to do one and shake their very foundations. A loose Family Guy spoof of the classic 1980s comedy known as Airplane. Airport Aero 7 sees Peter and the gang stage an airplane hijacking to portray Quagmire as a hero of aviation, thereby reinstating his pilot position from which he was fired. Well, considering the crimes Quagmire has committed simply by breathing at times, it's safe to say that he's better off without any titles of honor, but then again, that's just my opinion. Things don't go according to plan, although Quagmire saves the day at the very last second. Memorable thanks to a cameo from the late Playboy founder Hugh Hefner.
Mind if I have a seat?
Hugh Hefner?
Did you do the best you could?
No, I was gonna, but I ended up getting laid instead.
Airport 07 draws a few uncomfortable parallels to the September 11th attacks, but that is hardly where most of the dark humor comes from. Yes, you heard that right. This was like an appetizer compared to what I have to show you next. The most shocking gag in the show is the out-of-place prom night dumpster baby cutaway joke. From the name itself, I suppose you guys can guess where this is going. Yup, it's a gag which makes light of teenage girls discarding newborn babies like garbage.
And though I came from a hole,
and though we came from a hole.
While many fans often complain about Family Guy's overuse of musical moments, they are especially hard to watch with subject matter like this. 8. Halloween definitely not done right.
Oh my god.
Normally, Halloween would be used as a catalyst to create a great horror movie, or simply to parody. In this case, it's more of the latter, but with serious Alabama implications. Chris and Meg go to a party with the hopes of finding someone to get lucky with in Halloween on Spooner Street. However, they unwittingly do the nasty with each other, and after being initially horrified by the revelation like any normal pair of siblings would, they decide to just enjoy the fact that they got some action.
You know what? I don't care. I hooked up with a chick tonight, and I am pretty darn proud of myself.
And I think maybe he'll call tomorrow.
You may be disappointed.
Despite it being highly questionable and outright illegal in most places around the world, not just America, Chris and Meg can often be some of the most off-putting characters on the show, and this is an episode that pretty much cements that fact. Having said that, it's not even the worst part of the show. As all of this is going on, Peter and Joe develop a habit of pranking Quagmire to a rather extreme degree. Sick of their antics, Quagmire takes them for a near-fatal ride in a Japanese World War II era fighter plane.
That one over there is my favorite. It's an old Japanese Zero.
Wow, no calories and all that Japanese taste?
Not only does the storyline feel very forced in its way to a very obvious punchline, but there are a lot of racial jokes made in order to reach that moment that feel lazy and ugly. This is not to say that dark humor is unappreciated, but it has to at least have some tenacity to it rather than just saying something for the heck of it.
What the hell was that?
Pranks on you! I'm not Japanese!
7. An unexpected bonding session.
Come on, please.
I keep it in case I ever want to commit suicide, okay?
Though it is a common tradition of sitcoms and television shows to do this, there can be some truly terrible TV bottle episodes if done poorly. Such is the case with Family Guy's experimental episode, Brain and Stewie. The episode's titular duo of Brian and Stewie is trapped in a bank vault over a weekend in the ridiculously long 150th episode of Family Guy. The lack of cutaway gags and location changes puts the focus squarely on the characters, allowing for some uncharacteristic soul-searching, which is actually not that bad because it adds a lot more depth to the characters, both of whom are voiced by the same person.
How come you have a gun? Is it like a sexual thing?
No.
Oh, that's a relief.
The darkest point in the episode, though, is when Stewie finds a gun in Brian's safe deposit box, and Brian reveals his dark reasons for keeping it. Unflinchingly morbid, Brian and Stewie strays from the show's typical laugh-a-minute routine, forcing viewers through an uncomfortable emotional gauntlet. It is admirable that the show wanted to try something new, but it feels like going dark just for the sake of it and having no real purpose. If they had built on this in the later episodes, then it would have made more sense to take such a risk, but instead, it got fans worrying about Seth MacFarlane's own mental health, especially because he's the executive producer of the show and also often joins the writing room. This kind of stuff really makes you wonder what goes on in the mind of a showrunner, but the majority of the audience did not take it favorably. 6. This was always expected in the show. You'd expect an American show like Family to make fun of certain races and religions.
Correct! Go directly to jail and convert to Islam.
Because they do that.
So this one shouldn't really be much of a surprise to the folks watching it. Peter befriends a Muslim man named Mahmoud in season 11, episode 15, Turban Cowboy. And since the most offensive stereotypes are indulged at every turn in Family Guy,
blend in like an Australian at a Jewish bakery.
Oh, honey, would you look at all these kikes?
Mahmoud turns out to be a radical extremist plotting an attack, just like it's presented in the media.
The attack will happen tomorrow during afternoon rush hour.
To cement Turban Cowboy as one of the most offensive Family Guy episodes, it also features a gag about Peter killing a bunch of people at the Boston Marathon, airing just a couple of weeks before the tragic Boston Marathon bombings. Family Guy has tackled stereotypes many times before on the show.
It's this. Oh my God, that's terrifying. I don't know if I'm ready for that.
But as the sharp writing of the show started to fade in later seasons, some of these jokes seemed like less of a commentary on stereotypes and more like simply reiterating them without adding anything of value, line crossing to some and outright insensitive to others.
How did you do it?
I'll tell you, Bob, I just got in my car and drove it. And when there was a guy in my way, I killed him.
Turban Cowboy showcased just how unafraid Family Guy is to make light of taboo subjects. Yes, they have pretty much done the same things when it comes to other religions as well, but that can't exactly be used as an excuse here, can it?
30 terrorists are behind bars, and every middle-class Arab in this town is now under suspicion.
5. Stewie will never not be a controversial character. You know the show doesn't take itself seriously when a baby has been the same age for over 20 long years. Though the Griffin family has been shown to be unable to understand Stewie all of the time, the youngest member of the family is somehow able to take part in an extensive therapy session. In this particular episode, Sir Ian McKellen guest starred as a child therapist who was appointed to counsel Stewie after an altercation with one of his classmates in Send In Stewie, Please.
I saw the kid who has cancer leave. That must have been fun.
The whole episode takes place in the therapist's office, beginning with Stewie deducing everything about the therapist's personal life from the personal touches around the room.
I haven't heard of any of the schools you went to, but I'm sure they were great. I mean, you're here, right?
Throughout the episode, the therapist gets Stewie to open up and reveal that he fakes his pseudo-British accent.
Oh?
What is it you'd like me to say, Stewie?
That I have a British accent.
Which is a pretty meta joke considering the fact that he's voiced by an American, Seth MacFarlane. However, Stewie doesn't like someone knowing his secret and decides not to save the therapist when he has a heart attack. It is another experimental episode for the show and an interesting one that explores different facets of Stewie Griffin. However, though Stewie has killed people in the past, seeing him do it in this cold fashion, seeing a man beg for help and decide it is in his best interest to let him die.
Please, there's not much time.
I'd like to, really I would. I'm not going to get it.
Is definitely amongst the darkest, if not already the darkest thing the character has done.
So, this is how you leave me.
Sorry.
4. Never afraid to parody current affairs. While Family Guy has been shown to have a bold willingness to take on topical subject matter, it often feels hollow and insensitive to those who can't take a joke. Taking inspiration from the tragic incident of Trayvon Martin, which took place 3 years before the episode's debut, A Shot in the Dark begins with Peter setting up a neighborhood watch organization and accidentally shooting Cleveland Jr. when he thought he was breaking into his own house.
Phew! Unlike you, I just dodged a bullet.
Yes, of course they had to go ahead and do that. The ensuing court case in which Carter's lawyers do everything in their power to discredit Cleveland Jr.
Mr. Brown, please pick up this knife.
Ah, he's got a knife!
Attempts to be a poignant yet unsubtle take on how the justice system handles these cases while also adding some comedic elements to the story.
I don't think it's lost on any of us that the laws are written on white paper.
It's no surprise that justice isn't colorblind.
Unfortunately, Family Guy isn't known for its moving social satire, and the episode can feel more like a reckless jab than honest criticism. As is always the case, society doesn't really care about your intentions if the final output doesn't align with their beliefs.
Where did everybody go?
You want to make the media go away? Just mention black-on-black crime.
3. A dose of history that no one was expecting. One of the most celebrated of the Road to collection of Family Guy episodes, Road to Germany sees Brian and Stewie time travel to 1939 Poland in pursuit of Mort, who accidentally stumbled into Stewie's time machine. Well, how about that? A Jewish person happens to just randomly time travel to the worst possible moment in history for his ancestors, rife with extremely crass humor and featuring elaborate gags involving certain infamous dictators. Road to Germany makes light of some incredibly sensitive subjects for the sake of humor. Mort Goldman is a Family Guy character who has always been a subject of controversy, with the show leaning into typical stereotypes and always making him the butt of the joke.
Who is absolutely 100% not Jewish.
Hey, how about that Jesus, huh? What a guy.
To then take this Jewish character that has been mishandled and drop him into a comedic misadventure during the Holocaust was certainly a controversial idea. It's a very on-brand outing for the series, but those potentially upset by subject matter relating to World War II will want to steer clear. The episode is firmly regarded as one of the most offensive Family Guy episodes for obvious reasons.
Ah, unsere Unterseeboote sind stehlen mit einem Dog und Baby und Art Garfunkel.
But hey, if you love dark humor and are not easily offended, then go ahead and check it out. 2. Quagmire's not the only shady person in the show. Widely regarded to be one of Family Guy's worst episodes, Screams of Silence, the story of Brenda Q revolves around Quagmire's sister's physical and psychological abuse at the hands of her fiancé. Listen, we get that it's supposed to be a gag or whatever, but that excuse can only work when it's handled and presented in a certain way. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia alum Caitlin Olsen was squandered with a guest spot in an episode that has no redeeming comedic value, which is a big shame, because they got a great guest appearance and decided to ruin it with a bad joke.
Which is a perfect time for me to tell my jokes. And I will save them for the end.
A big problem with this episode is that it doesn't know which tone it wants to take. It is an ugly depiction of domestic abuse, but undercuts it with joke.
No, it's really not that bad. It only hurts when I see.
And an ending that doesn't address the issue in a way that's satisfying. If they had tried to make it more about the jokes and stuff without relying on graphic visuals, it would have probably been a much better outcome. But sadly, that wasn't to be at all. Whenever Family Guy tries to get serious, it doesn't always work, and that's exactly what happens in Screams of Silence, the story of Brenda Q. The episode oversimplifies its subject matter and presents all the wrong messages.
Jeff and I are getting married. I'd show you the ring, but it's under the splint. My finger fell down the stairs.
Which meant there were tons of fans ready to jump at the opportunity to belittle it. Seriously though, it genuinely felt as if they hired completely different writers for this episode. 1. Brian's story is not as it seems. Easily a contender for the darkest episode of Family Guy ever aired, this is also one of the most controversial decisions by the creators, which saw many fans turn against the show in a dramatic way. As a matter of fact, it has been argued that the series has never really recovered from the backlash of this episode.
Whoa, whoa, whoa!
Life of Brian depicts the death of one of Family Guy's most beloved characters following a car accident. Brian, the family dog, straight-faced and emotional.
You've given me a wonderful life. I love you all.
Life of Brian is an out-of-left-field gut punch for fans of Family Guy, and it didn't go over particularly well. After all, this is a show that has built its entire reputation based on the fact that it can make anyone laugh. Brian was briefly replaced by Vinny.
So what's your story?
Well, you know, I'm just a regular guy. You throw a stick, maybe I bring it back. Maybe I bring back an iPhone that fell off a truck.
But the showrunners eventually listened to the outcry from fans and returned Brian to the series. Look, changes can help to maintain a show's appeal, but that's that's very rarely the case with Family Guy, whether it's trying to get serious or killing off a beloved character. I suppose even in a show as twisted as this one, fans build an emotional connection with a recurring character.
You sure you're not gonna miss that thing? Nah, I was getting bored of it anyway. You know, not every historical event is all it's cracked up to be.
Do you agree with me on this? Let me know in the comments if you want to see another topic. Okay then, see you in the next one.